What is up, guys? Welcome back to
the Nerd Guys podcast
for all your one-stop shop for all nerd fandom that we like.
Yes, we are the internet's #1 nerdy source for all of nerddom. Today we have a very special episode for you all. This is season 2, episode 13, if I'm not mistaken. Today we have a really good episode. We've said it about a million times at this point. This episode I know is near and dear to my heart, but it's also super near and dear to Jamie's heart because he's like borderline super fan. Like, if he could have this stuff in his house, he definitely would. Like life-size replicas, like super detailed life-size replicas, like super duper detailed life-size. All right, you all are sick of me at this point.
What? Wait, what happened?
Today, of course, we are going to be talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I know.
It's Morphin time.
I know, big shock. Oh man, the nerd guy's talking about Power Rangers. Oh man, who would have thunk? But yes, today
It's not like we don't have a whole episode about us talking about Power Rangers in the first season. No, never happens.
But yes, today we are talking about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, specifically a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reboot. And I know you might be asking yourself, didn't they already do that? Like the movie that came out back in, what was it, 2018, 2017?
Yeah.
Like the Saban movie, wasn't that technically a reboot? And I mean, you wouldn't be wrong. But in this case,
And you also, go first.
You wouldn't be wrong. But in this case, you're wrong.
I was going to add to that by saying, and also if you slip back a couple more years, you may also say, wait, they also did it back in 2011 when they brought the footage back from the archives and just updated it and put little graphics on it.
I didn't count that as a reboot. That was not a reboot. Thing that played on Nicktoon.
That's what they called it.
The thing that played on Nicktoon Network was not a reboot. Sorry. It was It's like Dragon Ball Z Kai. It was the original show. There was no new footage that was shot.
But they put little bios in there. That doesn't
matter. Well, we have a heck of a show for you all today. So, Jamie, get us started.
All right. So, we're talking about the reboot that's being done by Hasbro. But I can't talk. And this has been a very interesting conversation, especially for people who are into Power Rangers and stuff like that, because this revolves around Hasbro saying that they want to go in the original route and do Power Rangers without any Super Sentai footage. So just all in-house, no footage from overseas or anything like that. And a lot of the fan base are like, I mean, yeah, we'll see. We want to see what it would look like. But, and I guess I could put my opinions in a little later. But like, I'll say for now, for me, I'm excited, but I'm also cautious.
By the way, everyone, this is technically just speculation at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry, I felt like I had to add that because a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is speculatory. To understand why it's speculation and why we're talking about it and why it might have merit, check out the YouTube video that came before this.
Yeah. there's a lot of evidence thrown at this, but again, it is speculatory. Um, sorry, I'm trying to figure. Okay, so when it comes to this reboot, they're doing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers again, and it's just going to be the regular 5 teenagers with attitude. So the 5 colors that you know, the 5 Rangers that you know, they'll be recasted as, you know, and with new actors and so on. Um, I feel, well, before I say anything, what is, how do you guys feel about that just so far from that? Like, what is the mood? Because I'm throw it in the comments, but I'm very curious. Like, would you want to see a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers reboot? Do you think that we spent too much time relying on Mighty Morphin and we should maybe shift our focus? Or do you think this is a good thing? Let me know. Because I'm very curious about that. What about you, my friend?
I mean, just off the merit of that alone, like we've had these conversations, like we did it in the past, I believe we did it in the previous episode that we made. We've done it in casual chats, like another Mighty Morphin Power Ranger series. I knew it was probably just a matter of time before this concept was on the table, because usually when studios want to make something popular again, they go back to the original thing that they made and they update it and put it back out into the world, and then new, like, younger kids who it would mainly be targeted for, or they would be the target audience, they're just like, oh my god, there's this new thing that's so cool, oh, you all don't know anything about this. And then parents could go, no, let me show you. I personally think that from a business perspective, it might be a good move, because you're introducing that nostalgia factor. So longtime fans of the show could come back, even if they don't like it, and rewatch it. And new fans could come to the show and feel like they're watching something new and fresh instead of something old and cruddy. Because let's be honest, the footage from the original show, while good in its day, probably doesn't hold up today.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Bandai did for Digimon. They went through an entire soft reboot and recreated the first season of Digimon and re-released it. It made longtime fans happy-ish. I haven't watched all of it, but, you know, it made longtime fans feel a sense of, okay, they're at least still doing stuff with Digimon, but it brought a lot of new fans in.
Yeah. As far as how I feel, like, I appreciate this idea because, like, it goes on what you were saying, recapturing the magic, right? Recapturing the magic of what Saban did years ago with the small developing team that they had back then. I do think it's a good way to introduce new fans to this very old series, and I do think it's a good way to bring back old fans who just remember Mighty Morphin and get them to interact with the series as well. For me, and like we've said this before, but like I love Mighty Morphin, but I've been saying it for a long time. There are other seasons of Power Rangers that people really, really love that you could take the same idea and do it with. And yeah, that's just kind of it. Like there are other seasons of Power Rangers where this same idea could fit and people would love it just as much, if not more.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the one Sentai series that you told me about where well, I had already seen part of it, but the one with the trains.
Oh, Tokuger.
Yes. That
Oh
apparently,
yeah.
from what a lot of fans said, is a really, really good series, but they never adapted it to a PR franchise series. And
It's really sad. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's like kind of a shame because although I personally don't like the Megazord,
Mhm.
I don't care for the design. It's like kind of thoughtless in a sense, and from my point of view, they could have probably adapted that show or other seasons and made something good, or even went off and made their own show with no Japanese footage.
Yeah, and I think that that's what they plan to do, but they're going to start with this first. And while again, like while I admire that, I almost feel like we should have continued adapting like one more series. I thought that one more series was going to be Cosmic Fury, where we really push it out, we really test the waters, we really like iron out the like some of these things out and have another full 2 seasons of this, you know, dynamic, really engrossed world that features these characters and adds more characters and has this like really awesome villain, but it's only 10 episodes. And it features Lord Zed, which is one of the OGOC villains. And like I like that idea, but I also don't. I with Tokuger, for example, I always wanted Tokuger to be adapted because I thought that the trains would be a perfect toy for kids. Kids, you know, a lot of kids love trains. If you put lights and sounds in these trains and allow them to combine like they usually do, that's a lot of money that you're going to be making. Especially if they're combined and they make sounds as they combine and whatnot. Like if you really put some really work in detail, these would be some really good products. Not to mention the series in itself would be able to carry because we could change. Like it's about trains. We don't have to base it on anything. It's about trains, and we could do anything with it because the actual season has to do with imagination. So imagination's easy to do with anything, you know what I mean? So like the I feel like the concept is there.
So would you?
Or if you did go ahead.
Nah, good.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like if we didn't do Tokuger, we could have done Lupin Ranger versus Path Ranger, which is the Phantom Thieves versus cops. That's you know, I don't want to say everyone, but there's a lot of people that know about the story of the Phantom Thieves, especially if you play like Persona or something like that. Or you know of Lupin the Third, and you know, police officers in a Power Ranger series. We've done that. That's SPD. So like again, another series that has toys that you could, you know, put lights and sounds into, and a series where you can really craft it in such a way because it's actually 2 Super Sentai series. That was the whole thing. So you could do this 2 Ranger series, Ranger team series, and craft it in such a way where we benefit a lot from it. and get so much out of it.
So, would you say you're a person of great imagination?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want your pitch. How would you write the new show if you were one of the writers on the show?
So is this me writing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
Yes.
Okay.
Or,
How I would...
Or, no, I'm sorry. If you worked for Hasbro, how would you write a reboot?
How would I write a reboot?
Yes.
I would take what they wanted, which was going into space, and run with that idea. Because Cosmic Fury, while having, space related things in the name, isn't truly space based, if that makes sense. And I feel like leaning into that space fantasy, that sci-fi fantasy would really work, especially at this time where sci-fi is really, really popular, and space, space-based stories are really, really popular. And I would just take from things that we've done, like take from In Space, and do have some little concepts like I know people have talked about the Psycho Rangers, an evil team of Rangers who, go out to fight the Power Rangers. So we could do something like that again with, an alternate version of Power Rangers that exists somewhere else or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would really expand the space travel and allow and pitch going to different planets and space stations and having space battles and Megazord battles in space and whatnot, and take that fantasy up. One of the things that I've been saying about Power Rangers for a while is sometimes I feel Power Rangers is way too grounded in reality. Like, it's a good thing to have some things that are grounded in reality, of course, but I feel like sometimes Power Rangers doesn't push the fantasy to as far as it can go.
When Jamie says, just to clarify, when Jamie says Power Rangers, he means the American franchise Power Rangers, not Super Sentai.
Not Super Sentai, no. Because one thing that I've learned, not even just from watching Super Sentai, like even before I started watching Super Sentai, one of the things that I was realizing while watching Power Rangers was there's something always missing. There's something that's always missing, and I'm like, what is it? And when I watched a season of Power Rangers, and take for Wild Force, for example, that is one of my favorite seasons because it has the fantasy, it has the real life stuff with like pollution and family problems or whatever the case may be. It has that disbelief of here's the fantasy part that you're going to enjoy, and here's the real life, real to life situations that you can relate to. That's the sort of balance that I enjoy when it comes to watching something like Power Rangers. But for my point, Ninja Steel, the Blue Ranger loves magic in a Power Ranger series, but he can't actually do magic, and he can only do magic once he gets his Ninja Nexus Prism Star or whatever the hell it's called, and then that's also limited. Like, he can only do it if it's like for good. Like, he can't just do magic whenever he wants. And I'm like, what kind of perk is that? You can only do good deeds with your magic. Well, why use it? what is it there for? You might as well not even have magic.
Yeah, there is no internal struggle. There is no struggle between good and evil at that point. You don't have any choice but to do good. You can't choose to do something wrong to show that you're human.
Exactly. Like it takes away the experience in teaching kids that like even though you get this super cool thing that you shouldn't misuse it. That's not how you teach kids that. It's like, oh man, this camera, you can only record fun things with. You can't record anything else. Like that's nonsense. Like people have to learn, man. I feel like that's a little too far in one direction, and I would definitely have characters be able to learn things. Um, for me, one thing I would have is to have, of course, continue what Power Rangers was trying to do is have that representation and, have different characters. So having an LGBTQ plus character, I thought was a perfect thing, but I I may have not watched it, but from hearing what people say and from looking at things myself and watching clips, I did not like what they did to them. I just don't. To me, I feel like telling an actual story about a relationship between two people, you don't have to go into like the super duper, nitty gritty. You can do surface level stuff, but there's a way to do it. And one of the things I hated was the fact that like we're still doing, you know, masked heroes. Like that's not like the masked heroes part is not a problem. But I feel like in some cases we should not do masked heroes. I think it should be appropriate that the people know who the Power Rangers are. Especially if you're going to have characters romance other like side characters, you know what I mean?
So
That just makes sense to me.
so in 5 quick points, how would you write a reboot?
So I would pick a strong theme to go for. I would um make I would write these characters in such a way that they could be fantasy and realistic at the same time. I would make an incredible villain who is an original villain, but isn't overpowered. What who said that? Get some really good music to play for the main theme and just in general for the overall narrative. And most importantly, we would do lots of um we would do lots of shots of different moments of Megazord battles and um fight scenes and whatnot, just so the show can have that level of death around it, because that's something that Super Sentai does a lot.
Okay.
How about you?
All right. So while Jamie was talking, I was sitting here percolating. If I had to reboot this show, I'll tell you right now, original fans, you all would be pissed off and you'd be like, oh, the show was trash before it was even 2 minutes in. Me personally, I would start at the Morphin grid, the place that
Okay.
all powers come from. The one of the least known about things in the entire franchise. Unless you're a comic reader, you're not really going to know much about the Morphin grid and how it relates to the Rangers. Then I will follow common themes like, oh yeah, you'll have teenagers with attitude. But I would also pull from past series like Dino Thunder and give them a mentor, preferably a variant of a past Ranger, if that makes sense. So my reboot of MMPR, if I had to rewrite it, would take place RPM style. It would be a completely separate universe off of the main timeline. It would be its own thing out of the main universe. It's its own entity. It's not connected in any way, shape, or form to the past episode or the past series if we're going to do something new. And I'd have like little funny jokes here and there about like, oh man, the juice bar, that sounds familiar. Maybe it was when I went in Texas. Like stuff like that. Like little callbacks here and there. But the way the Rangers would get their powers would be a little bit more in depth. Like sort of like how they got their powers in the Saban reboot, where, you know, they actually found this spaceship. Only difference would be they would find the command center, or at least one person would find the command center. And Zordon, by no stretch of the imagination, would be friendly at first. Like, it would be a little bit more, I don't want to say mature, but it would probably have to be a more mature show if I was writing it. Because while targeting, you know, 3, 4, 5, 8-year-olds is cool, and yeah, you'll sell toys, we can always write a different show for them. And by write a different show, I mean, like, you can always do spin-offs of a show. If you want to get people more involved, you need to reconnect that nostalgia from old fans so they can share it with younger people. Then I would just go through the journey. It would start off kind of dark, like RPM did, but get a little more lighthearted along the way. So it would still be for the core audience, but parents would be able to sit down and watch it as well. And again, this would be a completely untouched by other series. Like, that's how I think I would do like a Mighty Morphin reboot. And again, it would not be for everyone, but a lot of people would have to understand that it is a reboot, and, you know, it's not just going to be the same thing. Like, especially since you don't have the same cast of people. And for all you know, people might not want to come back. So, yes, my 5 points would be... My 5 points would be taking the original story and throwing it out the window and keeping the bones. AKA Zordon, the original cat, like the original 5 Rangers, and their names. I'd be okay with that. I'd explain more about the Morphin grid throughout the series. And I'd also, like Jamie, would have an original villain. I wouldn't pick Zed, and I wouldn't pick Rita, and I wouldn't pick Goldar. Like, it would be a new villain. And last, I'd make it a little bit more bearable, where parents would want to watch it, but parents could watch it and have that nostalgia trip, but kids could watch it and grow an appreciation for the franchise. And to Jamie's point, yes, it would be more whimsical, it would be more out there, and it would have more fantasy elements. Because as a kid watching Power Rangers, I used to think it was a little odd that, you know, they don't do things like world build much. and again, I get this is a kid show, but they don't world build that much. They don't explain things super well when it comes to certain details. And yes, I understand that children today have a quote unquote shorter attention span, but if you look at shows like Justice League Unlimited, any of the Batman series, the Superman series, X-Men, the cartoon, they're all superhero shows. They all tackle real situations and they all thrived. So I'd be hitting it from more of an approach like that, personally.
I like that. What would you pitch to Hasbro if you weren't pitching Mighty?
If I wasn't pitching Mighty Morphin, I would definitely pitch a space-based show. And
so same.
yeah, similar.
Yeah.
So personally, mine would be more rooted into like space and magic. It would be like, and forgive me because I don't know the Sentai counterpart names, but it would be like Magiranger meets Gyoryuger, where they're traveling the galaxy. They need to find some MacGuffin, not like Overdrive, not like Overdrive.
Oh, you're talking about basically like their space adventure. So
yeah,
with magic. So Magiranger and Bo Kenger, excuse me, which is Japanese Overdrive.
Kind of. Yeah, like Overdrive meets Mystic Force meets Q Ranger. They got to travel different planets. They're looking for some MacGuffin, and that's going to be the thing that helps them save, I guess in this case, Earth or whatever world they came from whomever the villain is. And plot twist, the person that goes off into space that eventually meets all the Rangers that are going to be on the team is a human, and they have to venture off by themselves. That's what I would pick.
I like
Hasbro, if I see anything remotely close to that, trust me, you're going to be paying me the ducats. You're going to be paying me some ducats, and we won't talk about it afterwards, but I'll be getting some ducats.
And I want to talk a little bit about both those pitches. The reason why those pitches, both, because we didn't tell each other pitches, but I can just from both of our pitches, the reason why we pitched Power Rangers to be did is, well, one, we're fans of it. You often talk about what you like and what would you do better or whatever. But I think, and I don't know if I can speak for you on that. I think a lot of times when it comes to what's missing from Power Rangers, what sort of injection it needs is sometimes just the simple thing, yours is space adventure, mine's a space base. Both of them have to do with fantasy, and it invokes real life things without going too far in that direction. It allows children of all ages to watch it, but the one thing I was going to say was putting in some throwing in some jokes that older fans will understand, because you're going to have people of all ages watching this series. So if you're catering to the children, which you can do, we can have those life lessons like Power Rangers always does, but also you throw in things that make sense. I think of the lesson in Super Mega Force of it's okay to ask someone out. And when it came to like Jake and Gia, and they didn't really like capitalize on that. To me, if you're going to make a lesson about doing something like that, you gotta go full force on it. You know what I mean? Like you can't halfway tell that lesson and be like, oh, by the way, what's over there? That's nonsense to me.
Yeah, you can't half-ass it.
Yeah. So I think and it's important to have those lessons in there. I don't think that's too much for kids to understand. Because kids are smart. Like the one thing that I wish, some, at least in some ways on American TV, some like these people that makes these shows would understand is kids are smarter than you give them credit for. Like they're smarter, they're able to handle certain subjects better, they're able to understand some subjects better because they're just kids now are built differently than what we were years ago.
They built different.
It's true. So I feel like it's okay. And like what I appreciate about Japanese TV is that they do this thing where they respect the line of these are children, right? But they do put in these themes and morals and stuff that is real world stuff that people have to go through: death, drugs, all that other type of stuff. But the way that they do it, or the way they handle it, is being able to tell the kids like this stuff happens, but you don't have to be a part of it. You don't have to do that, or if you are going through it, you can get help, or so on and so forth. So it brings it back to a positive way while teaching kids that may be going through it or not going through it about it. And I like that.
And it would be mandatory for the writers to watch some of the source material before writing an original. You can, and that's the most important part.
That's what I agree to that. I very much agree to that. Because I think about like the Neo Saban era of Power Rangers, right? The most recent before Hasbro. One thing I was thinking about was Samurai, the first series they came back with. Samurai has so much that it could have been if they would have actually allowed time for it to be developed, and if there was someone actually watching the Japanese version to understand how we could adapt a Japanese period era drama, into an American. Samurai are things that exist in Japan, and that's we got folklore and all that stuff about samurai. How do we translate that to something that American audiences can understand, that's respectful to its source material, and allows people to still have fun?
Forgot you can't sit here and you can't see me sitting here nodding my head. All right. Since talking about a potential reboot of the show, like, we should probably get into what's going on between Hasbro and Netflix.
All right, I can. So, according to sources confirmed with TV Line, showrunners Jenny Klein and Jonathan Enswile, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, will no longer move forward with the Netflix deal. Hasbro is currently searching for a new partner to go along with its new creative direction for the series. TV Line also reached out to Spider-Gen for a comment, who reported this, who was the first to report on this. As far as I can find, Hasbro's other shows will continue to be featured on Netflix.
So, point blank, it seems like Hasbro's not going to move forward with doing the reboot on Netflix alone, and might like they're shopping around, I do believe, for other networks. And to me, I think that's like a better deal, because not for nothing, Netflix kind of tries to corner the market when it comes to certain shows and streaming, and it makes it really difficult for people and fans and new fans to watch.
Yeah.
Because when everything's locked behind this paywall of, oh, you have to have this subscription to watch this show, this place, it doesn't really work. Like, if it were me personally, I'd try to strike a deal with the even larger group of people that are currently banded together when it comes to streaming services, and that's Hulu, ESPN, and Disney and Max.
Yeah.
Or even, well, I can't even say Paramount, because while Paramount does have a lot of things, it's, in my opinion, not really there. Like, if I personally was doing it, I'd go with Disney. Like, it'd have to be Disney, because although, and I hate that I'm saying this, although Disney kind of like corners the market when it comes to children's shows and just media in general now, they're like a surefire proven, like they're proven in all of this. Plus, they've done and directed popular Power Ranger season.
Yeah.
So like, I think if you could strike a deal with Disney where you're getting toy sales and they get like whatever revenue from the show and the license to make the show, it'll be good for everybody. But I also would hesitate to say that it would be perfect, because as you've seen in the past with Disney and Marvel and Sony, Disney kind of screwed Sony out of money a little bit, in my opinion. But Sony also kind of screwed themselves out of money. So I think that Disney and Hasbro could strike a deal. The toys wouldn't probably be the best, but the quality of show would be phenomenal. And we saw what Disney could do back in the early 2000s, and we see what they're doing now. Visually, the shows might not be, well, and I'm stepping aside from Marvel. I'm talking about like all their original series. They might not be the best, quote unquote, when it comes to content, but their writers can write. The quality of show is like that of a mini movie, and since Power Rangers only runs for like 10 episodes a season anyway, it could be like a cool 6-season miniseries with hour-long episodes. Like, bruh, come on. We all sat down and binge watched everything Marvel put out and had some opinion on it. So you're telling me that Disney wouldn't be able to take PRIP, Power Rangers intellectual properties, and make something phenomenal with it, while Hasbro turned around and made toys that we all want again?
I was going to add to that. Remember, they also struck a deal with Playmates to make the toys. So,
right, I forgot about that.
In tandem with making, this deal with Playmates and having Power Rangers be streamed on, Disney Plus, I think it would be the best of both worlds, because Hasbro could pitch an idea to Disney. Disney would be like, all right, we'll pay for it.
I don't really know if Disney would pay for it, but
well, there's a potential that Disney would be like, all right, we want to see what it can do. And this is where we get into our pure speculation, right? What are the other reasons do we think Hasbro turned down? I believe and this is speculation, but I believe that it's because Netflix wasn't going to dish out the money for Power Rangers.
Yeah, I think they were being greedy, personally.
Yeah, and a lot of you, like, there's some of you like, oh yeah, that's not really that big of a surprise. But then there's some of you that maybe go, but why wouldn't they? Like, Power Rangers is very big, it's very popular. Is because Netflix sometimes takes stuff for face value. And the face value of Power Rangers to them is that, oh, it's cool. It's a cute little show that, kids and fans alike can watch. But, it'll drive up our numbers a little bit, but not as much as like maybe some of our other shows, which they have the right to do, is their streaming service. But I always feel like, especially when it comes to Power Rangers, that, some of these, companies overlook what Power Rangers could be versus what it is. Power Rangers could be really, really good if you put a lot of money behind.
I don't think you have to put that much. Like, personally, I don't think you have to put a lot of money behind it. But the amount of money that Disney puts into their production of their shows, I think if you took that, you could make a solid show and you could sell a lot of toys. Because, like, let's be honest, a lot of people, and I'm making a bold claim here, but a lot of people who have children have Disney Plus. Like, I just think it's the most popular out of all streaming services, because every time you turn around, kids don't say, oh, I want to go to Paramount Land. They don't say, oh, I want to go to Netflix Land. They want to go to Disneyland or Disney World. Because why? They know all the Disney princesses. They know all the Disney princes. They know all the Disney characters. They know Moana. They know Inside Out. They probably don't know Inside Out 2, but that was for a completely different reason. But they know all of these characters, and let's be honest, the generation of parents that are raising them, they know the original, the Peter Pans, the Snow Whites, the Cinderellas, the Mulans, the
oh man, you're listing all the princesses of
yeah, exactly. All the princesses of heart. Exactly. Like, yeah, and that's another thing. They know the Kingdom Hearts. Like, they're tapped into Disney, and Disney has such a strong brand presence that if I were Hasbro, Disney's riding a high right now. So I could definitely get behind that and be like, yo, we want you to bring past seasons of this show that we own to your streaming service, as well as write and produce our new streaming or our new show or our reboot, whatever, like whichever. But these are the criteria. This is what we want. We want all the merchandise sales, and I'd say roughly 2% of all earnings on the show, like of streaming royalties, which has been a gray area with a lot of writers recently, which is why we went through the writer strike about a year ago.
Yeah.
I, on the flip side, say if they don't want to go to Disney, I say they partner up with, and I don't know this, so I'm going to ask you, who owns the IP in Japan for the Sentai series? Which
Toei.
Oh, God, that would be just as good. I'd partner up with Toei and be like, yo, so we own the IP for Power Rangers. We don't want to use any of the footage. We just need backing. And we want to start our own streaming service where we could put Toei originals, like, I was about to say.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No.
What we've talked about.
Exactly.
Yup.
The Tokatsu streaming service.
So you would have Toei originals, you'd have all Super Sentai and all of Power Rangers in one place. You'd be able to watch American and Japanese alike, and even other series that fall under the umbrella of Tokatsu. Like,
that would be, bro. you know what you just created. You created a place where people can watch Godzilla,
Yep.
Ultraman,
Mm-hmm.
the Space Sheriff, um, Metal, any of the other Metal Heroes.
Yep.
I'm not thinking of. Then also,
Masked Riders.
Mass Rider and Common Rider,
Uh-huh.
and Super Sentai.
And it opens up an ability to be able to make new versions of all those shows. Because right now, Ultraman's killing it on Netflix. So yeah, they're
And
not going to pull away from Netflix for that. But it would give them their own service, and who knows, somewhere down the line with new cable. I'm calling it new cable because once you get all these streaming services, you eventually are paying the same price for cable. You're just not paying for like live channels. But they could strike a bundle or something where they bundle up with, say, Disney or Hulu or Max or Paramount or Netflix or whomever, and they have all these shows in one place. Or hell, even Crunchyroll. They could partner up with Crunchyroll, like well, Funimation got folded into that, but they could partner up with Crunchyroll. So now you have anime, toku, and like Power Rangers, a whole genre of hero stuff in one place. Hasbro, I hope you are listening to this as I point very sternly off into space. I hope you're listening to this because I'm telling you right now, I would not only buy a subscription, I would pay for a premium subscription to get the highest quality footage I could, because I enjoyed Power Rangers, I enjoy Sentai, and if Sentai was in a place where I could watch it without having to go to like some backwater website and lose track of where I was, I would do that. And if there is something like that, please, can a fan of Power Rangers or Super Sentai sound off in the comments? If there's some sort of streaming service that you can get for it, I really want to know about it, because I don't want to have to use a VPN. I don't want to have to, like, everyone should use VPNs, but you know what I mean, VPN to watch shows from other countries. I would like to have, and maybe this is the American in me talking, I'd like to have a service dedicated to these shows.
I also would like that, and I think it would benefit fans of Power Rangers in Japan too, because you know there are fans of our series overseas, just like we're fans of their series over here. So like I think it's a cool interaction, and like I said, like it's not even just Power Rangers and Super Sentai that's in one place, but you put Kamen Rider, which is still ongoing, Ultraman, which is still ongoing, um, Godzilla, um, whatever else I'm not thinking about, like all these other series in one place, so people can watch old episodes of whatever, or old series. They can watch the new series. They can watch the movies that come out for these things. It it's so mind blowing, because like for me, I love Power Rangers. I love Super Sentai. I love Kamen Rider. Um, I want to get into some of the other Toku series as well. And if this sort of thing existed, I I guarantee more fans of all of these things would people would come together even better, knowing that all their places and all their things that they watch are in one place, because now discussions can be had.
Yep.
Oh my god, did you see that episode of Godzilla? Yeah, I also went over and watched that one episode of Kamen Rider Kuga. Man, that was so cool. Like those type of conversations could be had more often if all these things were in one place, because people can give a season of Power Rangers to try. Like if they've never seen Power Rangers, they want to watch Power Rangers Jungle Fury. All right, they put on an episode, they watch it, and they're like, "Oh, I love this," or they're like, it's not for me, but maybe I'll keep watching to see if it turns me around," type thing. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of having something like this exist.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I I would love it. It would be a dream come true for me, and I'd actually grow as a fan of Toku. Whereas now, because everything's so scattered, unless I truly go out to watch it like I did anime, I'm not really gonna.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears. We know Power Rangers teamed up with Netflix to make shows like Beast Morphers and Cosmic Fury. But they also did the nostalgia trip, which was Power Rangers Once and Always. And we found ratings of these shows, like according to IMDb, Cosmic Fury had a really good fan response. It was a 9.3 out of 10. And Once and Always had kind of mediocre. It was not really mediocre. It was like okay. It had about a 5.7 out of 10. And that kind of sort of proves that there are people watching. And I'm pretty sure someone somewhere in the Netflix ethos or the Netflix company has the numbers of how many people actually streamed and how many streams they got. They're not breaking records, but fans are out there and they still watch, and new fans come in and they still watch. But they can't really progress the show because they're not taking leaps anymore like they used to. Or at least I feel like they're not taking leaps like how they used to. Before, at least when I was growing up, you had a season after season after season, and each one of those seasons were different. Like one year you had Mighty Morphin with dinosaurs or prehistoric creatures as like the Zords and the theme. The next year you had Space Rangers. Then the next year you had like a variant of Space Rangers where they were in a galaxy far, far away. But you also had like futuristic cops and dystopian saviors. Like they were technically cops, but they weren't really cops. They were just like they were more like a militia, and I'm talking about RPM. You even had magicians, you had ninjas. Eventually, we got samurais, and like while at one point in time during the different eras of Power Rangers, we've talked about this extensively. They built on each other's world and made connections to each other's world. So they were world building through series. I don't really see PR doing that nowadays. And they're kind of afraid to take a leap on a new idea and just have it be out there. And I think that's kind of the issue. Like, because they're not really world building and taking these leaps to make something new and out there, they're not really going super hot. I don't know. Jamie, what do you think?
I agree with you, and I just thought of something that I saw on Hector David Jr.'s page, who was the Green Samurai Ranger. He was at a panel, and he had said that, and I don't know how much this is true. This is just from what he said, so do whatever you will with it. But he said that Samurai was going to have a little bit of a more mature look to it, but
which it should have.
Yeah, and with like basically the age limit of the last character, Emily, like the youngest character would have been 18, but Saban changed his mind, and well, we got what we got. And to me, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, on one hand, I can understand why Saban might have chose to keep or to make Samurai the way it was, because didn't want to rock the boat and disturb what the fan base was. Wanted to kind of come back into some sort of normality, and basically tell the world, hey, the Power Rangers are back. But I also think that maybe that was a little short-sighted, because to me, if Samurai was more mature and it had some sort of other thing going on for it, we wouldn't have had to rely on the Japanese footage so heavily, to the fact that like Samurai is basically, if not a translated version of its Japanese counterpart. I truly think that sometimes Power Rangers gets in its own way, and I'm not blaming anyone specifically. I'm not saying that like, oh, it's this writer, it's that writer, blah blah blah. Like all these people who work for these shows are people, and I'm pretty sure they're all wonderful or whatever they are. I'm pretty sure they work hard. But I also think
they definitely work hard.
yeah, like I'm not taking nothing from no one, but I'm also sitting here as a fan, and I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing it as it is. People say, "Oh, well, Power Rangers is for kids." Yeah, I'm looking at this thing that's for kids, but thinking the kids that are watching this are smarter than this.
Especially in today's day and age.
Yeah. I know kids that are 3, 4 that, or even younger than that start speaking like full sentences. How? But you wanna do fart jokes and little, oh, this is the lesson of the day that's not really important, no one cares. Also, to me, like when it comes to Cosmic Fury, when I was looking at the ratings, I was looking at fan responses. It surprised me a little bit that someone spoke about how Cosmic Fury was actually really good, while all the rest stuff was kind of and Dino Chargers they liked a little bit, but like to them this was a cohesive series because it didn't have filler, it didn't have stupid jokes, it didn't have all the usual fluff that Power Rangers tries to like cram down people's throats. And go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, like, I think that's why I like the Disney era so much, because while they did have their stupid jokes here and there to like uphold the tradition of like your Bulk and Skulls and your comic relief characters, they still had mature-ish themes that me as a child at the time was able to understand, but also question and go talk to my parents and go like, hey, what's this? Like, for instance, why are people fighting? Why do we fight? Why do we do certain things that we do, like as people? And it sparked a conversation in a healthy way.
Yeah. I like RPM for a lot of reasons. RPM is a very kind of dark and gritty series. But this same series that has the cartel in it also has Dr. K shooting this same cartel with a gun that gets rid of their clothes. That's funny. I like that. I can see it for what it is as a person or as a kid, especially when I was watching it, for the first time. But I can laugh at it because it's not a stupid joke. It's a, oh my god, that's so funny. I can't believe she made that. When did she have the time to do that? You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. I like that type of stuff, and like I've met little kids that like that type of stuff. That intricate it has something else going on to it. And like you said, Kitsune, like topics that are brought up, like I said, the cartel thing. When have we ever seen a cartel in Power Rangers? So if you're a kid, you don't know what that is. So you go ask, oh, hey, mom, what's a cartel? And your mom's like, well, first they get a little confused, like, oh, wait, did you hear that? But then they sit down and talk to you and like, oh, well, it's, this and blah, 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 blah. And they explain to you, why that's a bad thing. And then you tell them like, oh, well, I was watching Power Rangers and the Power Rangers had a problem. Like one of the Power Rangers had a problem and one of their friends helped them. And then your parents would get like, oh, that's really good. That's a good, thing. That's a good lesson. I like that stuff. That's kind of what I was referring to when it came to Super Sentai. Like, they take that extra bit of time, like care. Yeah, there it is. That's the word I'm looking for. They take that extra bit of care to give you a situation that kids can go and talk to their parents about. Their parents will, they ask their parents this question, their parents answer it, and then the parent will get involved, like, oh, well, I'm gonna go watch the next episode with you. And then they watch the next episode, and then maybe it's another episode where it has to do with something that's personal or maybe a little heavy, but and they it's the interaction I think of when it comes to Power Rangers. In that comment that I read, I like what they said because they really put down what they liked about their eras, which was the Saban era. They loved the Disney, like at least the first half of the Disney era, and they liked RPM. And I'm like, well, yeah, you basically covered a lot of the bases that most people, well, most fans that watch more than Mighty Morphin cover. So that's good. But also, it gave me the same perspective. Like this person said that they didn't like Samurai and they didn't like Megaforce because they felt like there was just too much, oh, it's this and it's this and it's that. And I agree. Like they put too much of this nonsense. Megaforce's one of Megaforce's biggest problems is that they couldn't pick what they were focusing on. Was it the school? Was it the fact that their Zords being headers and they're mystical beasts and shit? Is it and then when they switch to Super Megaforce, are we focused on the pirates and what's the true goal here? What's the thing that these guys what's their main objective?
Right.
They don't have one.
Right. They don't have a focus. So we talked about a lot today. It was a lot of great discussion. And the last thing we both agree we wanted to get into is what a MMPR reboot could potentially mean for the franchise. So we're going to do this one in 3 points. Jamie, what do you think an MMPR reboot could mean for the franchise?
I feel like we could get new games from it. I think that Hasbro wants to push this out as far as they can, and I do believe that making games is a good move because it would allow this media that you're pushing out to to be pushed out even further, and like it brings it back to like back when we Power Ranger games were normal. So I feel like bringing that back will really help.
Right. Okay. Is that all?
Now,
is that all you think it'll bring to the franchise?
No, I also think that they would go back to doing the comics.
That one might be a little difficult because I know the comic studio that was making Power Ranger comics has, I do believe, since been closed.
Oh yeah.
But it's nothing saying that they couldn't get a new studio, personally.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the comics would take a little longer, personally, just because like it's not like that's not important and we shouldn't focus on it, but I feel like the main focus should be the series and the toys, and then we should devote a lot of love to the other areas such as like the games and the comics and any other source of media that we can, grab a hold of and throw Power Rangers in that direction.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, yeah, like
Uh,
I'd be inclined to agree. I think what this could mean for the future of the franchise is that, you know, they have an opportunity to do something different. They've done the same thing for like what, over
30 years.
over
30 years.
3 decades. They have the opportunity to try something different and be a little courageous and adventurous. We could get new media, or I'm sorry, new merchandise, whether it's toys, clothing, games. Like, I feel like a clothing line would be crazy right now because a lot of stores are doing it. I mean, like, Deadpool and Wolverine just released a week ago at the time of this recording. I went to see it, but Disney and Marvel have been peddling merchandise after merchandise, from popcorn buckets to soda cups to hoodies, controllers. Like, I mean, it's a good time to be a fan of geekdom. So Saban, Hasbro, they could really capitalize on this stuff, and like it'd be a little more in line with the Japanese market, like the Sentai market, the Toku market, because they make fashion out of this, and it makes it a little bit more mature. And when fans show enough interest, now you have a new series for older people. And I lastly, sorry, I think that this could give an opportunity of the show to grow up with a generation and be sent off into the sunset with a new generation, a thing that we didn't really get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, personally, while I like a different Ranger season and cast every year, I think this could be an opportunity for Hasbro to focus on one team for, I don't know, 2-3 seasons, much like how the original Mighty Morphin was, and just build that world out and do that on repeat for at least 4 or 5 seasons, where you have the passing of the torch from one generation to the next. And then when you get around to whatever the next time you want to do a soft reboot is, do it. Go for it.
Yeah. I like what you said about the merchandise, because Super Sentai does release a lot of, like, Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and all their series, they release a lot of, like, true one-to-one of stuff that the characters are wearing, whether it's like vests or clothing pieces or whatever the case is. And I think this would also be a good time for Hasbro to really push that as well, because they could do the same thing. They could also push out for making suits for people, or hiring people to make suits for them, for people, for public consumption or something like that. Like,
All I have to say is, Hasbro, look to the anime industry and what they're doing. You can learn a lot. Well, this has been a fun episode. I enjoyed talking about the potential of a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger series coming back, and new fans being reintroduced, and old fans being severely disappointed.
I want to do another one of these episodes. Very much enjoy talking about like this. One, I think it's important for us for fans in general, like all of us, to get together and have these conversations, because it sparks new ideas. It sparks the conversation of like, oh man, well, I like this of this, blah blah blah. Blah. But um, I like doing these sorts of episodes because it brings out the the passion and emotion.
I'd agree. So, let us know your thoughts. What do you think a reboot of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers could mean for Power Rangers franchise? Are you a fan of Power Rangers? Are you a fan of Super Sentai? Are you a fan of superhero things at all? Sound off in the comments. Let us know. We read every single comment and we respond to just about every single comment.
And maybe answer some of the, like, how would you pitch? What would you pitch to Hasbro? And if you were pitching this reboot, what would you pitch? We want to hear it. We want to see it.
Exactly. So, until next time, everybody, I've been Kitsune Sai.
I've been Jamie Shadow 9.
And we are out of here.
Bye.
Bye, Yukio. Bye, Wade. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.